This is the Galaxy S24 FE, and whilst it might not look like there's a lot of upgrades over last year's model, the inclusion of the Exynos 2400 has meant there's upgrades that you can't see and that we haven't been told about. I've dug them all up. Here is all the secret upgrades to the Galaxy S24 FE. Well, let's go. Now, this is probably going to focus mainly on the camera, and that's fine. There's a lot of camera-centric upgrades, especially in the modes, but it's not all about the camera. Starting with the design upgrades that are subtle but definitely noticeable, the first is the silver ring around the selfie camera. It's not that it's an upgrade, it's actually just making it something that it should have always been. At least now it's gone because it was a bit of an eyesore. One though that you definitely will notice in terms of practicality is how it feels in the hand. They've slightly rounded off the frame at the back where it meets the glass. And that makes it feel so comfortable in the hand, especially for a phone of this size. It feels really nice to hold. And a lot of that's because it's not sharp around this corner bit at the back. It actually is kind of natural and feels nice and ergonomic. That's really it for the design. Of course, they've made the bezel smaller and it's bigger. So those are two things you kind of notice. But these are subtle things. Things that maybe won't impact day to day, but they're definitely better. Moving into the software side of things, and there's a couple of things Samsung have included where they've kind of matched what their older siblings, I guess you could call them, of the S24 series have as well. The display, apart from just having higher brightness, is just a better display all round. But there's some tweaks in the software that you can make to sort of make it suit your liking a little bit more. If you go into the display settings and it's into like color profile where you've got the vivid option, with the S24, Samsung brought in a vividness slider. That same vividness slider is here on the FE as well. So you can dive into this and you can tweak it and sort of make it a bit more vivid, a bit more muted, depending on your style. It'll give you a preview at the same time as well. This is where you can do that. Something that I didn't think this was going to get due to the display that it's got is Super HDR in the gallery, but it's here. If you go into the gallery and you turn on the toggle for Super HDR, you'll actually get to see the pictures a little bit more brighter and more contrasty, thanks to this toggle, because it brings out the dynamic range that Galaxy phones capture in a better way. You can see the difference between turning it on and turning it off. You can have them here side by side. It's not that it's this crazy difference. It just makes the dynamic range a little bit more noticeable and more punchier compared to what it is if it's not turned on. Another hidden upgrade on the S24 FE is in Galaxy AI. Samsung have snuck in the photo ambient wallpaper. Now, a lot of the older generation phones didn't get this. So S23 Ultra, for example, doesn't have this as part of the Galaxy AI suite, whereas the S24 FE does. This photo ambient wallpaper effectively turns your wallpaper into like a live wallpaper to match the weather. So if it's raining or if it's snowing, depending on your climate, it'll actually play the weather over the top of your existing wallpaper on your lock screen. So when you set the photo ambient wallpaper in the wallpaper settings, you can actually see a bit of a preview of it. It's a pretty simple process, and then you set it. That's in there, part of the Galaxy AI suite on the S24 FE. Now let's look at the camera upgrades. There's a lot. Whilst on the surface, the hardware hasn't had any significant change whatsoever because it is using the exact same 3 lenses on the back and the same selfie camera on the front. The software, however, has got massive improvements. Starting with the camera assistant, you have some toggles in here that can do things like bringing in the 2x crop shortcut, which will remosaic the sensor and crop into a 2x portion of the lens using the high resolution, which is nice. Turn that on and then it appears in the camera with the 2x button. And then just the general camera assistant toggles in general, you can go through and sort of use the ones that are a little bit more advanced than what was on the S23 FE. But diving out of sort of settings and into the actual camera app, there's a lot more that you can do. Photo-wise, it's effectively the same thing. They haven't really actually added much in terms of the main photo mode. In fact, they haven't added anything. Video, however, is where there's heaps and heaps of improvements. Starting with, of course, the resolution. You can now do 8K at 30 FPS. Because of the limitations of the previous FE chipset, it could only do 24. Whereas now you can actually get the full 30 FPS at 8K with the right sensor crop as well. This is evident both in the main video mode and in pro video mode as well. So you've got the option to use it in both. Of course, in pro video mode, you still have 8K 24 if you like that cinematic frame rate, but 30 is where it's at. It's nice and smooth, as you can see here. You could also do 4K 60 on the selfie camera too. And what's great is you can switch whilst recording between the selfie camera and the rear camera. The main camera on the rear is the only one that can do 4K 60, the ultra wide and the 3X. Hardware wise, still not capable, but you can switch between the selfie and the main one whilst you're recording in 4K 60. You also have Samsung added upgrades to auto framing, in which now you can record auto framing content in 4K 30, which before was only limited to full HD. And that auto framing in 4K 30 gives such a massive advantage to the footage because it makes it so much clearer and sharper. And for editing later as well, you have more sort of resolution to play around with. And you can start the auto framing from 0.6, 1, or 2x, which is really nice. I've got a video planned where I go into how to use all of these modes correctly for the S24 FE, so hit subscribe if you want to check that out. Also in video mode, you have Quad HD Super Steady. So Super Steady always being that action type mode, which was introduced with the Galaxy S10 5 years ago now. The S24 FE can do Quad HD 60 FPS. And that 60 FPS just gives you ultra smooth motion to go with the smooth, stable footage as well. It's just at the top there, you can set it in sort of the way you like. And the S24 FE can capture in 4K 120 FPS in slow motion only. So they haven't brought the 4K 120 from the Ultra into the FE in Pro Video mode, but you can do 4K 120 for slow motion, which is fine. It works great. It works exactly the same here as it does on the S24 because there's really no difference. The other upgrade, which I was really excited for, is 4K 30 from the portrait video camera on the S24 FE. Portrait video is great. I used it pretty much exclusively for a year and a half here on my channel. Every video was shot in portrait video. I've since upgraded to the Sony ZV-E10. Got my eyes on the FX30, so hopefully that can come in and do the job with A-roll even stronger than what this can do. The idea with portrait video is you capture that cinematic style, where it can sort of blur out the background, create that sort of cinematic soft bokeh effect, and sort of keep the foreground in focus. What was limiting on it before was it was limited to full HD. And I think full HD in that style, when you're trying to create that cinematic feel, just doesn't cut it. Whereas 4K 30 portrait video just offers you that extra bit of detail and resolution. So when you are capturing content, you get more out of it. Here's a bit of an example of what full HD portrait video looks like. This is the S24 FE. I've just set it to full HD portrait video. And this is what 4K 30 portrait video mode looks like on the S24 FE. You can definitely notice a difference, especially if you're punching in to zoom in. Whereas on full HD, when you're punching in to zoom in, just doesn't have that same feel. So this is the difference, and this is the upgrade. The other upgrade too to portrait video mode is you can actually zoom in between 1 and 3 times whilst you're recording in portrait video mode, which I think is a really nice touch. You're not just limited to the focal length that you start with. You can go between 1x and 3x and anywhere in between. I just watched back that 3x, it was too close. And the next upgrade too is probably my favorite video mode Samsung have made ever. Dual recording. You can record with the S24 FE using 2 cameras at the same time. Unlike director's view, where you are actually just previewing what the other camera was seeing and then you sort of zoom into it afterwards when you need to, this actually saves them as separate video files, meaning that you have 2 sort of crops of the same sort of footage with the same audio that you can then overlay in editing and then work with later. Great for sports games. You can be sitting there in your chair and you can get closer to the action, but also capture the bigger picture at the same time. Really love it for capturing videos of my son at football because it means I can sort of focus on him, but also show him the bigger picture later on too. It's wonderful. And the last camera upgrade that I noticed too was single take. Now I think this came via an update to all of last year's phones, but it's out of the box here as well, where you can capture using any of the rear cameras on the back for single take instead of just one. You select your camera, you press the capture button, and you capture it from that focal length. Should you need to do another one, you just select the other camera and go again. I really like that. Single take as a premise is letting the subject act naturally, and not getting too close to the subject too is kind of part of that process. So using sort of the zoom camera, I really like that because it means I can get closer without actually sort of disrupting what it is I'm capturing a photo of or photos of, because we know how good single take is. This is the thing. A lot of people look at the FE and they immediately shoot it down because it has Exynos or because it's not the flagship. The thing is, you're not missing a lot. This has got so much of what the mainstay S24 series has, and it performs it to pretty much the same level. If you need a better zoom camera, if you need a better ultra wide camera, then that's where you go into that flagship territory. But if you just need a camera that can do all of the same things, maybe just doesn't do them as well, then the S24 FE, you'll be silly to look past it, especially for the value that you get. And now that Samsung have thrown in all of these features as well, you've got yourself a pretty good device. Let me know if you've picked up an S24 FE in the comments below. Let me know if there's any camera modes in my deep dive that you'd like me to cover in a bit more detail than usual. I'll see what I can do. Hit subscribe for that video, and I'll see you guys in the next one.